Application of the Noble Eightfold Path in Life, Right View. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. The Noble Eightfold Path is considered the singular path to joy and liberation. Concept of a singular path should not only be understood literally as the only way or the most effective path, but also in the sense that practitioners who engage in its practice and application will attain worldly merit, liberation, and even sainthood. The effectiveness of the Noble Eightfold Path helps practitioners transcend two modes of living. One is indulging in sensory pleasures, culminating in marital sexual life. The other is the strenuous effort of asceticism, suppressing the body, which leads to a loss of sensory enjoyment. Both are mistaken as the path to liberation. The Noble Eightfold Path steers us away from these two extremes, helping individuals develop right vision and apply faith in right thinking. The Noble Eightfold Path is a spiritual path capable of transforming ordinary people into saints. First and foremost is right view, or correct vision, the initial factor on the Noble Path that all spiritual practitioners must traverse. Pali Canon divides right view into two levels: mundane right view and supermundane right view. Living an ethical life, developing virtuous behavior, and creating mundane merit, such as observing the 5 precepts and the 3 refuges, allows one to enjoy the blessings they have cultivated after rebirth. In addition to the 5 precepts, practicing the 10 good deeds can lead to rebirth in various heavenly realms after death, depending on the intensity and degree of one's virtuous action. This represents the non-human realms, such as extraterrestrial life. A person who practices and lives with right view exhibits selflessness from 2 perspectives: psychological and epistemological. Epistemologically, selflessness is first understood by recognizing that the universe has no initial cause, whether it be a deity, materialism, or the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. Even from an idealistic perspective, one sees the clear process of dependent origination, leading to the operation, existence, development, and decay of all things, allowing a new process to follow similar steps. Right thinking, right intention, is defined as all the initial thoughts and intentions of an individual that are free from greed, hatred, and delusion. According to Buddhist psychology, all defilements that lead to suffering have their direct roots in these 3 poisons. Buddhist practitioners must transform thoughts related to killing, hatred, delusion, and craving. Those who strive to eliminate all 4 unwholesome thoughts are considered to be practicing right thinking. Here, right thinking goes beyond just positive or correct thinking, as defined by inductive, deductive, or analogous reasoning. It is a form of superior thinking that is worthy of practice, aiming to attain joy and liberation in life. When analyzing right speech within the Noble Eightfold Path, we gain a key to self-help in resolving social impasses. Right speech in the 4 Noble Truths is similar to the 4th of the 5 precepts that all Buddhists are encouraged to practice, which encompasses 4 aspects. 1. Speaking the truth. 2. Using words that build and unify. 3. Speaking with culture and character. 4. Using words that are beneficial and valuable. The 4th precept is often misunderstood as merely abstaining from lying, but if we ignore the other 3 aspects, the means of communication will be hindered. Proclaiming the truth is the first step, but without the remaining 3 aspects, communication is seen as obstructed. Right action, sammakamanta, is defined in several suttas. The common agreement that it involves refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. The definition is simple, but its application is detailed in various scriptures, helping us to easily grasp the nature of right action as the foundation leading to saintly action. In other words, there is no saintly action without right action. Right livelihood is more important than the concept of joyful livelihood, as expressed in the phrase, "settle down and enjoy work." Settling down is understood as being stable in one place, not needing to move or be affected by external environments, leading to stable employment and happiness. Right livelihood inherently includes these 2 factors, along with others such as ethics, law, and right understanding. Only those who live by right livelihood have the opportunity to accomplish the other 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. Without right livelihood, there is no right view, and vice versa. Those living in wrong livelihood can only have wrong thinking because it is based on greed, hatred, and delusion. Right effort is described in three aspects: abandoning evil, doing good, and purifying the mind, as outlined in the Dhammapada verse 183. Do no evil, cultivate good, purify your mind. This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Right effort is the crucial link that creates a close relationship in the cause and effect practice with the first 5 factors: right view, right thinking, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. The last 2 factors that complete the path are right mindfulness and right concentration. In the 7 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, any lack of right effort will hinder the practice. Although it is listed 6th, its importance supports the other factors, leading to success. Right mindfulness is the spiritual handbook, the daily practice for all practitioners. In the Noble Eightfold Path, right view and right effort are paramount, followed by right mindfulness. With right mindfulness, one's speech will always be kind, harmonious, cultured, and beneficial. With right mindfulness guiding one's actions, they will not involve killing, stealing, or sexual misconduct, avoiding all occupational hazards and accident. Right mindfulness is the process of adjusting one's attitude and emotional reactions, helping one avoid the extremes mentioned earlier. Thus, practitioners eliminate greed and hatred, uprooting delusion. In other words, when practicing right mindfulness, we significantly address the impurities of the body and mind. Right concentration is the 8th level of the Eightfold Tower, heavily dependent on the 7 preceding levels. For right concentration to manifest early and sustainably until the practitioner attains the fruits of liberation, first 7 levels are indispensable. Right concentration should not be understood merely as mental focus. It is the training of the mind based on 3 wholesome factors: non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion. In summary, right concentration resolves the problem of suffering. Right view begins the issue of spiritual life at a high level, and the remaining 6 factors are essential supports. Without completing all 7 right factors in the Noble Eightfold Path, it is difficult to achieve right concentration. Regardless of the practice, all practitioners need to cultivate the initial 7 factors, from right view to right mindfulness, so that right concentration can be achieved at the highest level. Ignoring the first 7 right factors means right concentration cannot be attained, which we must firmly believe. With right concentration, wisdom arises and practitioners achieve liberation. Right view, vision and value, illusion and fear. The Noble Eightfold Path is a spiritual path capable of transforming ordinary people into saints. First and foremost is right view, or correct vision, the initial factor on the noble path that all spiritual practitioners must traverse. Before analyzing, let us consider the story of a delusional person. The story is about a person who suffers from delusions and hallucinations, and his family takes him to a mental hospital. Here, the doctor examines his senses and mind and discovers that he has a severe hallucination problem. The hallucination causes him irrational fear of roosters. Every time he hears a rooster crow or sees one, he panics and runs away. In psychiatric therapy, there is a part of self-suggestion, and the doctor applies this method, asking him to repeat as a mindfulness process. I am stronger than the rooster. I can kill the rooster. The rooster is smaller than me, and it cannot harm me. Repeating this phrase many times, like feeding data into the mind, can control and adjust the functions of cognition, helping patients living in delusion to correct their perception. He practiced for 3 months, feeling joyful and no longer afraid of roosters. Believing he was cured, he approached the doctor and asked to be discharged. The doctor observed the psychological changes in the patient, noting his attitude and interactions with others, and saw that he had made progress, so he agreed to discharge him. After completing the procedures, the doctor cautiously tested him one last time. He released 3 roosters in front of him. Seeing the roosters, one crowing, another flapping its wings, and the other running around, the patient became confused again. Panic-stricken, he did not dare to leave the gate and turned back. Upon returning to his room, feeling safe after no longer seeing the roosters, the doctor asked, "You said you were no longer afraid of roosters, didn't you?" Patient replied, "Doctor, I am not afraid of the roosters. But how can I make the rooster understand that I can defeat it so it won't peck or kill me at any time?" When the nervous system is misaligned, cognitive distortions can occur. leading to errors in judgment, including deduction, induction, analogy, etc. The result is that the subject of cognition becomes a victim, fear-induced crises, unable to remain calm, peaceful, and happy. Mental patients' perceptions are often skewed. Due to a lack of foundational reality and causality, they feel increasingly alienated from the truth. Instead of directly reflecting the reality, they reflect through an inaccurate lens, leading to distorted perceptions. Delusion is a mental illness, and those who live with this condition suffer greatly. The spiritual path of Buddhism does not merely stop at psychological therapy, but reaches its highest point in treating the mind, supporting, adjusting, and transforming cognition and behavior. This process plays an essential role. With mental disturbances that are difficult to adjust, those affected by this condition will reincarnate with more mental troubles in the next life after their current one ends. Some suffer from mental illness due to hereditary factors from their parents. Others develop it due to social circumstances, psychological repression, or family crises. These socially and psychologically rooted illnesses can be cured when the crisis conditions no longer exist. Family members, in collaboration with doctors, use psychological techniques to support those in crisis from falling into fear. Recovery can take place within a few years. All these misperceptions are inevitable phenomena beyond the patient's control. The great misfortune for these individuals is that they do not know they are ill and do not feel the need for a doctor. They resist and oppose the idea that they have a mental problem. After taking medicine for a few days, they revert to their old behavior patterns. The result is self-inflicted suffering and causing misery to family members, especially those who care for, love, and cherish them. In more severe cases, they may create trouble for the community, becoming a societal burden. Two types of right view. Right view is defined as the leading factor, like the appearance of the sun at dawn, creating life, growth, and activity for all plants, humans, and animals in general. Without sunlight, there would be no dawn, and living species would exist in darkness. The importance of right view is understood in the Pali Canon as the opening of knowledge, with wisdom being its highest peak. Describing the Noble Eightfold Path in the scriptures, the most impressive aspect is placing right view at the forefront. It is understood as the starting point. A person starting with right view is adjusting their perception of the world, life, and social relations based on ethics and following the standards of that perception. After practicing for some time and attaining insight, the scriptures call it the eye of the Dharma or the eye of wisdom, as opposed to the misperception of error or ordinary perception. The starting point of practice is right view, and the result of practice is also right view, meaning wisdom. The Pali Canon divides right view into two levels, mundane right view and supramundane right view. Living an ethical life, developing virtuous behavior, and creating mundane merit, such as observing the 5 precepts and the 3 refuges, allows one to enjoy the blessings they have cultivated after rebirth. In addition to the 5 precepts, practicing the 10 good deeds can lead to rebirth in various heavenly realms after death, depending on the intensity and degree of one's virtuous actions. This represents the non-human realms, such as extraterrestrial life. Practice of right view also has 2 different levels. The basic level, applied in society, it creates mundane merit. At the ultimate level, mostly for monks practicing, it leads to the path of liberation, where the practitioner no longer falls into the 3 realms and 6 paths, thus being called supramundane. Utilizing the correct vision of the noble path for the purpose of gaining joy and happiness, the result is mundane merit within the 3 realms. Of course, even if one is reborn in any realm, they are still subject to the cycle of samsara. A practitioner with right view is someone who lives very ethically, meaning they progress further and further on the path of happiness, not stopping at the accomplishments they have invested in. If we analyze the 2 concepts of mundane right view and supramundane right view, we see that the Noble Eightfold Path, from the perspective of the supramundane, results in unsurpassed enlightenment. The same correct vision, if applied by a layperson practicing Buddhism, leads to mundane blessings in family life. The path of practice for lay people does not necessarily have to aim for liberation. Applying mundane right view is to build happiness through economic, social, cultural, educational, and other aspects in a proper manner. Supramundane right view is the inner strength and goal of the monastic, while mundane right view is the path and trajectory for lay people. Understanding this issue, we do not need to apply the spiritual liberation path of monastics to lay people, as we have done throughout the history of Buddhism's development on various continents. There has been almost no difference in rituals between lay people and monastics until now. And this is a fundamental difference in the concept of the noble path that the Buddha advocated and the path of practice we are following. After a period of practice, lay people who are deeply engaged in the practice of the Dharma become monastics in terms of consciousness. Their body remains that of a lay person, so they cannot fully utilize the capabilities of a monastic, resulting in being stuck between lay and monastic. Due to this confusion, many lay people abandon their work and do not want to pursue their own success. In my opinion, lay people only need to focus on mundane right view. Monastics with the tools, conditions, space, goals, and ideals are required to practice for the result of liberation, repay the gratitude of the three jewels and the donors who have supported them with expectations and acceptance. Conditions for right view. According to the Pali Canon, to attain right view, practitioners must rely on two factors. First, listening. Second, wise attention. Listening, as described in the Right View Sutta, involves effort and commitment, approaching, consulting, and learning from virtuous people, saints, and sages about the content of the Dharma, engaging in exchanges, interactions, and sharing based on learning from experienced practitioners and those who have better practice, thereby expanding one's knowledge of the Dharma in both depth and breadth. Since the 20th century, with the explosion of information technology, ancient texts and scriptures in various languages such as Pali, Sanskrit, Tibetan, and classical Chinese have been translated into the languages of many countries. In particular, in Vietnam, scriptures translated from the Pali Canon and Chinese Canon have been widely disseminated on the internet. These scriptures have been recorded and made available, allowing for the learning of the Dharma through listening, helping us correct our mistaken perceptions. Listening in Buddhism is called deti, firm listening, meaning listening with a firm standpoint, with a view, not listening blindly, as followers of other religions are trained to listen without questioning. Questioning is considered a challenge to divine authority and is seen as a rebellious sin. Buddhism teaches us to listen and perceive. We can even close our eyes and contemplate each sound with its conveyed meaning, enabling us to have independent cognition, not dependent on the teacher. Wherever there is listening, there is knowledge being received well. The thinking process can lead to practice. So firm listening in Buddhism is a process of mental purification, different from the situation where students sit in class listening to the teacher to understand and accumulate knowledge. Listening in Buddhism is a factor leading to right view, based on the laws, teachings, and practice, helping us to open our eyes to the correct vision, not stopping at mere knowledge. Wise attention is an essential condition for opening the eye of wisdom for practitioners. If listening is considered a database in the interaction process between existing data, not using the old as a foundation to evaluate the new, leading to an easy reception of it, wise attention is decisive data. Wise is understood as conformity to the truth, attention as mental initiation, perception through judgment, deduction, induction, synthesis. It must be based on the reality observed, heard, smelled, and known to reflect faithful. Person with wise attention avoids prejudices, wrong views, and delusions, contradictory psychological attitudes that make a person cling to the self, excessively elevate or severely demean it, are manifestations of ignorance and defilements. As a result, there cannot be correct cognition consistent with the nature of reality. Wise attention is a lens through which all received data reflects faithfully the real world. The perceiver will not have erroneous judgments. If we compare this concept with Nyaya, logic, or Buddhist logic of the Mahayana, then wise attention is understood as direct perception. Direct perception is an immediate, direct view, without the intervention of consciousness and attachment, manas, so this judgment is very accurate. Wise attention is the direct knowledge of science. The cognitive aspect of wise attention helps practitioners evaluate the real world without letting emotions or knowledge from customs and traditions interfere, and not allowing thoughts based on personal pragmatism to negatively influence it. The focus lens of wise attention helps us have a broad and accurate view of the object we are facing in the mind, not just facing it with the eyes. In other words, wise attention makes correct judgments because we have firm listening to the Dharma, through the Pali Canon and Mahayana literature in general. To attain mundane right view, firm listening and wise attention are two indispensable data. Deep understanding of cause and effect. A person with right view always has knowledge of cause and effect. There are two types of cause and effect knowledge: flat cause and effect and spatial cause and effect. We can temporarily use mathematics to describe the depth of cause and effect perception. There is a saying, plant melons, get melons. Plant beans, get beans. This is flat cause and effect. There is planting, so there is a result. The relationship between cause and effect is shown through melon seed, melon plants, melon flowers, and melon fruits, which we cannot deny. Cause and effect has a unified process, no matter how conditions influence. The homogeneous nature is still maintained. Even in the situation where we graft from tree A to species B, the homogeneous nature remains, not being broken. We still see this as a type of flat cause and effect, although there are many cases where planting melons yields no melon, and the result is bankrupt. This year, farmers see that chili peppers are profitable, so they invest in them, borrowing money from the bank, buying seeds, fertilizer, and labor. When many farmers do the same, product is still as good as every year, but the market price drops. The market rule is supply and demand. When supply is high and demand is low, prices will drop, and the investment result has a yield, but there is no economic result, leading many to debt. This is similar in other investment fields. In nearly 2 years, due to the impact of the global financial crisis, many farmers have lost everything. This is because they viewed cause and effect from a flat perspective. Developing spatial cause and effect means the multidimensional influence of conditions, the seeds humans have created for themselves not only in this lifetime, but also in the past life, not just their own, but also in relation to the cause and effect of society as a whole. Every historical period, past, and new collective karma has emerged, positively influencing cause and effect in a good or bad direction. Socialism emerged to liberate classism. State-owned economies based on collective farms do not encourage the level of investment, so people possess and privatize. The result is that the socialist economy is not high, leading to the situation we all see. Capitalist economic model previously exploited labor. When socialism emerged, it changed itself, referring to socialist doctrine to innovate. Socialism proposed a good model, could not develop it due to many limitations. Meanwhile, capitalism has become the choice of the current era, with many countries adopting a free market economic doctrine. Nowadays, socialist countries still use this model, but due to the relationship before and after, people are searching for a socialist market economy. In the new collective karma, people accept it to maintain the foundation and absorb the positives. However, whether it is socialism or capitalism, the nature of the market is supply and demand. Applying cause and effect from an economic perspective, we see a great multidimensional impact in all aspects. Financial crisis leads to a global economic recession. The real estate crisis leads to similar results. The stock market crisis leads to the paralysis of the market economy in general. A person with right view has a spatial cause and effect vision, not making superficial judgments about what we invest in. The Madoff scam was unprecedented in human history, causing the world to lose hundreds of billions of dollars. His method of deceiving people was to use the reputation of billionaires and millionaires who wanted to collaborate in financial market activity. When introduced, investors were reassured and entrusted their money. The interest Madoff provided to investors was higher than that of global banks. By encouraging greed and ignorance, people did not need to assess whether Madoff had the ability to generate higher profits from his banking services or not. They continued to invest more and more in Madoff. The need to withdraw cash for use was minimal. If any, it was insignificant. He took money from later investors to pay interest to earlier ones, The money kept circulating, even though he had no real activities. Besides his fake financial activities, creating financial data to report so that people did not suspect, his employees received higher salaries than in other places. The FBI in the United States had warned about this issue 45 years ago. People ignored it. Now it has been discovered, and someone demanded to withdraw nearly $1 billion, but he had no money to pay. The world sentenced him to 170 years in prison and fined him over $100 billion, with all his assets confiscated. Many famous charitable organizations, including the Red Cross, the World Bank, and Swiss banks, were in distress because they had deposited money with Madoff. His financial system was present in 130 countries, directly affecting those countries. In the 1980s, he was honored as the God of Finance. Now we know he is the devil of global finance. Madoff has caused the world to reel in a crisis. Many millionaires who entrusted their money to him couldn't bear it and committed suicide, including a German millionaire ranked 95th globally and 5th in Germany. They saw the cause and effect of financial investment too simply. In other economic activities, greed led to ignorance, and as a result, all our honest investments went down the drain, burning everything, which is a great pain. Understanding the reverse spatial cause and effect, we should not be lenient about depositing money in banks or with private individuals to get high interest rates without knowing what they are investing in, how their economic activities are, or imagining that in a year our money will increase by 15% or more and continue to grow accordingly. The result is that nothing remains. Right view about cause and effect helps practitioners live correctly, avoiding skepticism, making judgments and assessments with direct observation, leading to high accuracy without falling victim to scams due to a lack of knowledge. Anyone who falls into a scam is someone without right view about cause and effect, making superficial judgments. Living with right view can minimize economic risks, reduce occupational accidents and traffic accidents, and ensure the highest level of safety and happiness. Right view is a problem-solving vision, different from a crisis vision. Those with a crisis vision, without the ability to solve problems, will seek to escape from the real world, leading to more failures, suffering, and increasing obsessions. A severely ill person, confined to a bed or wheelchair, without right view, easily falls into negative feelings, asking the doctor or loved ones to use assisted suicide methods to end their life, helping them die peacefully and escape the pain on their body. The Western world has seen an event that has drawn much attention. An 84-year-old man and a 75-year-old woman, who had lived happily together for over 50 years, ended their lives together by drinking poison. When the autopsy was conducted, it was found that the man was in the final stage of cancer and the woman also had a similar illness. They saw that their lives were nearing their end, so they chose death, hoping to continue as husband and wife in the next life. The world has raised new legal issues. Currently, many countries prohibit assisted suicide. Those who encourage, agree, or assist others in dying can face up to 14 years in prison, 3 years in some places. Each country has different penalties. Meanwhile, some other countries accept the use of drugs for assisted suicide, so that patients who can no longer bear physical pain can die peacefully, reducing the burden on their loved ones and saving on hospital costs, considering it a humanitarian solution. The ethics of assisted suicide is still a subject of debate. From the perspective of cause and effect, we see that escaping the suffering of physical existence by ending it early does not mean we will no longer have to pay for physical ailments in the next life. Whether delayed or escaped, we still have to continue to pay for it in the next life. The Buddha taught, let death occur naturally, birth, aging, sickness, and death. Some are born without experiencing aging or sickness and die. Some are old but not sick and die. The law of cause and effect for humans is like that. We should joyfully accept the course of cause and effect to live in peace. A person with right view does not escape from reality, including suffering, obstacles, adversities, challenges, and trials that come to them. The remaining issue is how to handle it. Noble silence. The Pali Canon has a term called noble silence. Towards the end of his life, he used alcohol to relieve his sorrow. Although he was a Buddhist, He could not overcome this habit. Feeling powerless in the face of cause and effect, powerless in the face of all the events of life, powerless in the face of social injustice, powerless in the face of all the things he wanted but could not do, the Buddha called it the truth of suffering. Many people, powerless in the face of the truth of suffering, silent sighers. Buddhism teaches us to be silent, not to sigh, but to have noble silence. Noble silence is understood as silence like meditation. Meditation is a process of transforming emotions, changing perceptions and behaviors, allowing a person to reevaluate themselves, analyze data and the events to find a legitimate solution without negative side effects. When practicing noble silence, psychological stress from social injustice, unfulfilled desires, aversion to what one must encounter, love that must be separated, the desire to stay young without aging, sickness, and death, does not become a burden. Person who is silent in meditation, silent like a noble person, can peacefully resolve all misfortunes that come to them. Right view helps us face problems with strength, not a negative endurance of resignation, accepting everything as destiny. Practicing right view, we no longer sigh in despair. Breathe deeply, gently, comfortably, freely, and at ease. We clearly see the flow of mixed emotions, the direction of the mind with opposing categories, and the notions of the past and future, which have no value. Returning to ourselves in the present, we see clearly that the body is not me. I am not dependent on the body. The suffering clinging to the body and emotions will fall away. With right view, difficulties and obstacles are just conditions like any other conditions that arise. Conditions may be favorable or unfavorable. Favorable is joyful, unfavorable is not sad. There is no reason to falter on the path of our ideals, even if losses occur or results are only relatively achieved. Practicing right view. A person who practices and lives with right view exhibits selflessness from two perspectives: psychological and epistemological. Epistemologically, selflessness is first understood by recognizing that the universe has no initial cause, whether it be a deity, materialism, or the elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. Even from an idealistic perspective, one sees the clear process of dependent origination, leading to the operation, existence, development, and decay of all things, allowing a new process to follow similar steps. A significant error is the belief that the world is created from matter or mind. Materialism and idealism are two opposing extremes. Buddhism is not idealism. Many misunderstand the term consciousness only and say Buddhism is idealism. The study of consciousness only should be understood as the study of the mind. Understanding dependent origination helps us not to accept any condition as the origin of the universe, seeing it as multidimensional interrelation. Applying right view helps us see clearly the physical body composed of four principles: solid matter, which includes skin, flesh, bones, marrow, cells, and all the atoms and molecules creating the rapidly operating cells, with a large distance between them, never remaining as they are. Every small fraction of time that passes causes them to become something else. Liquid matter includes tears, mucus, sweat, urine, saliva, and many other things inside that bind the body together, maintaining life through the process of metabolic exchange. It is just a borrowing process. At the same time, thermal and kinetic principles related to high and low body temperature, the movement of breath, the impact of wind and external air on the body, make people live comfortably. Without these two factors, it is difficult for a person to live long, even with solid and liquid matter. Lack of movement leads to illness. The Amitabha Sutra teaches the principle: eat and walk. After eating, take leisurely steps, which means walking meditation. The Buddha did walking meditation without reciting. Just walk, breathe gently, calmly, and mindfully with the body, feelings, mind, and dharma, so as not to suppress the breath in the stomach. Most monks have weak stomachs because they use too much breath in chanting. Practicing epistemology helps practitioners have right view, not equating one of the four principles or all four principles. I and the body are understood as a vehicle, functioning as long as it is harmonious, and we live healthily and long. When disharmony occurs, we will become ill and die, depending on the severity of the illness. A practitioner with right view does not equate the living body as I, the body after death as them. The ashes after cremation are not them. The body buried in the grave is not them. and thus they can escape the body, reincarnating immediately. Psychologically, the selfless person has a humble attitude, seeing clearly that the knowledge they have is not something they created, and correct knowledge is a rule. Theorem. Consequence of all judgments aligned with the material universe and human worldview, and the ongoing developments around us. The Buddha clearly stated in the scriptures that he is not the author of the truth. He merely pointed out the path to approach the truth. He illustrated this with an analogy of a treasure house in the forest. Creepers covered the surrounding trees, preventing many from seeing. When he cleared the weeds, creating a path, those who followed him could reach and see the treasures in the house. Truth has no author. Truth is only found by those who follow the right path, whether in the past, present, or future. Following the correct law can lead to the same truth. The Buddha stated that he is the Buddha who has realized enlightenment, and sentient beings will become Buddhas. He rejected the notion of being the author of truth with the statement, "For 49 years of teaching, I have not spoken a single word." It is not that he shirked responsibility for what he had declared, but to teach us about non-self in the aspect of authorship. For Buddhist practitioners, authorship is not an issue. Truth belongs to everyone, and we are responsible for widely disseminating it. In the world, inventions have authorship. Selling authorship rights can provide a livelihood for several generations. The cause and effect value of selling and buying authorship rights ends immediately afterward. Donating authorship rights has long-term value. A person practicing right view has a vision of applying non-self, both in epistemology and psychology. Their style is comfortable, gentle, modest, simple, yet still maintaining a deep solemnity. Their lotus flower of non-self shines brightly with petals, stamens, and seeds. Other flowers cannot compare. Understanding impermanence. A person with right view always lives in harmony with the principle of impermanence. Non-self applies to matter, impermanence to time. In other words, non-self is space, impermanence is time. No material thing exists or develops independently of time. Space is the space of time. Time is the time of space. Those who understand right view in terms of non-self will understand right view in terms of impermanence. Practicing right view helps us see clearly the evolutionary flow of past, present, and future time. Without expectations, without living in idealism, without idolizing or absolutizing anything, everything in life never goes as we want. It follows the law of causality and conditions, both within itself and the surrounding entities. All changes, including human relationships, the sea turning into land, land turning into sea, trees turning into ashes, deserts turning into forests, are the principle of impermanence. People understand Buddhist impermanence as darkening the real world, leading to despair, making people no longer strive to do anything. That is the negative aspect of impermanence. Impermanence, as the Twin Towers of the United States turned to dust, as the two tallest Buddha statues in Afghanistan became relics in the hearts of Buddhists. Due to impermanence, many temples have become dilapidated. Due to impermanence, the young become old, the healthy become sick, and death comes. Due to impermanence, everything changes. Due to impermanence, politics, economy, society, culture, and education are not the same as in the past. Everything is constantly changing. Recognizing the nature of this operation, we do not become overwhelmed and live normally. Applying the spirit of impermanence, Trin Kung Sun stated, "Oh, don't despair. Oh, don't despair. Autumn leaves fall in winter. You are me, I am you." When we clearly see impermanence, people know how to live closely, lovingly, and care for each other in social relationships. Each time a natural disaster occurs, love is sown. Wherever a tyrant appears, a bodhisattva is born. Wherever there is suffering, there is also joy and happiness. It is because of impermanence that these opposites exist. Without impermanence, this would never happen. The Twin Towers of the United States collapsed, but within 30 years, several similar towers have risen around the world. The two Buddha statues in Afghanistan are gone, but in China and other places, construction has begun. Impermanence can create new processes with more positive, beautiful, and better values. The people of China have a saying, "The waves of the later push the earlier," meaning that the next generation is increasingly progressing, more skilled, better, and more excellent than the previous generation. The collective karma of each historical period is increasingly being addressed, promoting new inventions. As time goes on, human knowledge develops at a greater rate than in the past, where it took our ancestors several centuries to achieve. All positive developments in life are due to impermanence. This is a special right view. In his work, Madhyamaka Shastra, Bodhisattva Nagarjuna made a very profound statement. Because of the meaning of emptiness, all things are achieved. Because of the principle of emptiness, all phenomena in life are accomplished. And the second statement refers to the positive aspect of impermanence. Most of the world does not know this and therefore considers Buddhism to be pessimistic. The word emptiness in Madhyamaka philosophy is understood as dependent origination. All things and phenomena arise from causes and conditions, which are called emptiness. All phenomena that arise from causes and conditions are taught by me as emptiness. All phenomena and events formed, existed, developed, and operated under conditions are called emptiness. Whatever exists and develops due to conditions is understood as impermanence. Causes and conditions in the physical aspect are non-self. Causes and conditions in time are impermanence. They are two sides of the same issue, inseparable. Thanks to impermanence, positive processes continue to arise. Besides encountering the negative aspect, i.e. the downside of impermanence, we also have the opportunity to encounter the positive side of impermanence. Without impermanence, there would be no night and day, no operation of the moon, no sunlight. Without steps, we would have no destination. Without efforts, we would have no results. All changes and processes mentioned above are called impermanence. Do not understand impermanence as only bringing consequences. Impermanence also has positive results. Person with right view sees this clearly. Value of right view. A person with right view always lives in harmony with ethics. The value of a person with right view surpasses that of those with ordinary knowledge, as clearly stated in the scriptures. Currently, in the United States, there are about 40 universities with Buddhist studies departments, either as an independent department or as part of other fields such as religious studies, Asian studies, Indology, linguistics, Pali studies, etc. In the United States, there are very few Buddhists, and most of the professors are Protestants or Catholic. Similarly, in India, most Buddhist studies professors are Hindus or have no religion at all. Buddhist monks or lay people involved in teaching Buddhist studies are not many. This situation is also present in other countries with Buddhist studies department. Thus, knowledge of Buddhism is different from the application of right view. Anyone studying Buddhism with an experienced teacher after 4 years can lecture on the sutras, explain and resolve issues accurately. This does not guarantee that they live ethically in society. Knowledge of Buddhism is just a means to attain right view, not right view itself. Applying it to ethics and lifestyle is what is called practical right view. A person with right view never kills. They are always conscious of protecting peace, promoting the spirit of love for humanity, protecting animals, and contributing to preventing global warming, not creating environmental crises due to greed, hatred, and ignorance. A person with right view never makes false statements, never uses uncultured language. Whenever they speak, it always brings meaning and value to life. A person with right view never commits adultery, remaining faithful to the principle of one spouse. When the marriage contract legally ends, only then can they choose another partner. A person with right view never uses intoxicants such as alcohol, drugs, ecstasy, or other poisons to harm themselves or others. They do not participate in activities related to producing or selling weapons. Thus, a person with right view is always ethical in action, speech, and thought, receiving mundane merit in this very life. Practicing the final two factors of the Noble Eightfold Path, right mindfulness and right concentration, on the foundation of right effort, practitioner with right view attains the joy and happiness of supramundane merit, developing wisdom at the highest level, the Buddha's wisdom, and achieving supreme enlightenment unparalleled by anything else. In summary, according to the spirit of the Right View Sutra and Pali literature, a person with right view does not have the same political views as the worldly understanding. In Chinese, right view in Buddhism and politics are completely different. In politics, right view is a political stance dependent on a party or political ideology, such as capitalism, socialism, or any political party like the Democrats, Republicans, or Labor Party, etc. In contrast, right view or right understanding in Buddhism is understood as the correct perception of all laws of causality, dependent origination, ethics, practice, joy, and happiness. It is a way of solving problems, striving to make us better, more joyful, happier, and more saintly. Those with political right views sometimes suffer, sometimes rejoice, sometimes are righteous, sometimes become corrupt. A person living with right view, perceiving the world, the universe based on causality, dependent origination, impermanence, and non-self, is certainly ethical in life. The Buddha said the Noble Eightfold Path is the most challenging practice. Achieving right view cannot be done in one day or one night. Many people must spend several lifetimes reincarnating to practice it. Some, due to the development of their knowledge, are already at a certain level, so they can attain right view just by listening. The role of right view leads the remaining 7 factors of the Noble Path. The lowest value of right view is attaining mundane happiness, while the highest is becoming a saint of supramundane merit. The wonderful secret of meditation practice, facing difficult, organizing the practice. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. In countries following the Theravada Buddhist tradition, it is customary to begin each meditation session with a set ritual. Americans tend to downplay these prayers, seeing them as harmless ceremonies and nothing more. The rituals have been established and refined through practical experience by those who came before us and achieved results on the path of practice. So they are worth deeper consideration and learning. The Buddha himself considered the contradictions of his time. Born into a highly religious and ritualistic society, his thoughts were radically opposed to the religious and social distinctions of his era. There were many instances where he refused to use rituals for the benefit of the Sangha and took a firm stance on this matter. This does not mean that rituals are entirely ineffective. It means that rituals have their own effect if you use them correctly. But if you believe that the words in the ritual will save you, you are only increasing your dependence on the prayers and incantations. This will lead you away from the essence of truth, not towards it. Therefore, when practicing according to these formulas, we must thoroughly understand what they are and what results they bring. They are not magical spells but methods for purifying the mind. The practice is required to bring about result. Muttering prayers without attention is completely useless. Vipassana meditation is a dynamic and subtle psychological activity, and the meditator's psychological state is crucial to success. The method yields the best results in a calm, tranquil, and compassionate state. These rituals are designed to cultivate and lead to such attitudes in the practitioner. When used properly, they become helpful catalysts on the path to liberation. The Three Jewels meditation practice is very challenging. It is inherently a self-reliant and solitary activity. An individual must struggle against powerful and formidable obstacles, which is a significant part of what the mind faces during practice. When you truly immerse yourself in the process, you will realize that you are facing a terrifying understanding. At some point, you will look inward and recognize your own cruelty. This is what you are trying to break through, like a dense wall that has long blocked even the smallest ray of light. You find yourself sitting there glancing at this fortress, telling yourself, I have to get through that? But that can't be. That's all I have. My world, what matters to me, what I have built to recognize the world around me. If I let it go, my entire world will be destroyed, and I will die. I can't get through it. Can't. This is indeed a frightening and lonely feeling. You feel as if I am here alone, trying to break through something unimaginably enormous. To shatter this feeling, understand that you are not alone. Those who came before you also went through this path. They faced similar obstacles and broke through them to see the light. They established guidelines to help ensure the work could be completed. And they formed a Sangha to support and encourage each other on the same path. The Buddha discovered his path by breaking through a wall like this, and after him, there have been many, many others. He left behind clear teachings in the scriptures to guide us. He established the Sangha with teachers to maintain the teachings and guide others. You are not alone at all, and your situation is not hopeless. Meditation requires a great deal of energy. You need courage to face very challenging psychological phenomena and the determination to sit through various uncomfortable states. Laziness will not bring any result. To gain the energy to persevere, repeat the following verse to yourself several times. Feel the attention as you recite it. Be serious about what you say. I am preparing to follow the path that the Buddha and the noble disciples have walked. Passive cannot follow this path. I will overcome. I will reach the goal. Meditation on loving kindness. Practicing Vipassana meditation is training in mindfulness, non-self-awareness. This method will end the ego through the penetrating light of mindfulness. The meditator begins this process with a body and mind controlled by the ego. Then, mindfulness observes the workings of the ego, penetrates the roots that create the ego, and shatters that root into pieces. There is a dilemma in this matter. Mindfulness is non-self-attention. If we start with the control of the ego, how can we generate enough mindfulness from the beginning? At any given moment, there is a degree of mindfulness present. The issue is how to gather enough of it to make it strong enough to begin. To achieve this, we need a method. We weaken the most harmful areas that the ego can cause, and then mindfulness encounters fewer obstacles to overcome. Greed and anger are clear manifestations of the ego. When attachment and resistance persist in the mind, mindfulness will have difficulty operating. The result of this phenomenon is easy to see. If you sit down to practice while entangled in something in your mind, you will find that you are getting nowhere. If you are engrossed in plans to make money, you will do nothing but think about it throughout the meditation session. If you are furious about a recent insult, it will occupy your entire mind. Time in a day is limited, so every moment of meditation is precious. It is best not to waste it. The Theravada tradition has established effective means to help you set aside these obstacles temporarily so that you can get to the work of uprooting them permanently. You can use one thought to neutralize another. You balance your mind by thinking of something wholesome in place of something unwholesome that has just arisen. Generosity diminishes greed. Loving kindness dispels hatred. Be clear, this is not about freeing yourself through self-hypnosis. You cannot arrange for enlightenment. Nirvana is an unconditioned state. The enlightened person is truly generous and kind, not because they have been conditioned to be so, but because they purely express their fundamental nature, no longer restrained by the ego. Thus, this freedom is not conditioned. This matter is similar to psychiatric medicine. If you take the medication as directed, it will bring temporary stability to the illness you are suffering from. Then, you can directly address the root cause of the illness. First, you should dispel any thoughts of self-hatred and self-condemnation. Allow wholesome thoughts and wishes to come to yourself. This is relatively easy. Next, wish for good things to happen to those around you. Gradually extend these wishes to your friends, to your enemies, and further to all beings. Done correctly, this practice can become a powerful tool in your spiritual transformation. You should start each meditation session by reciting the following vows to yourself with full attention. May I be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May I not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may I always meet with favorable conditions. May I have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May my parents be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May my teachers be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May my loved ones be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May all my friends be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they all have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May those I do not know be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable condition. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May all my enemies be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. May all sentient beings be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they all have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life. Once you have made these vows, set aside all difficulties and obstacles during the meditation session. Forget them all. If they intrude into your practice, view them as they are, just wandering thoughts. Practicing loving kindness is also encouraged before going to sleep each night and immediately after waking up each morning. The vows also help you have a peaceful sleep without nightmares. They also help you after waking up. Open your heart to everyone, whether friend or foe, human or any other being. The most harmful, unpleasant feelings that arise in the mind, especially when the mind is quiet, are resentment and anger. Resentment always leaves deep experiences in the body and mind that are very hard to forget. This type of experience causes anxiety, tension, restlessness, and worry. You seem unable to continue sitting and experiencing this mental state. Therefore, we encourage you to start the practice with loving kindness. Sometimes people may wonder why they have to vow, "May all my enemies be healthy, happy, and peaceful. May they not encounter misfortune, difficulties, problems, and may they always meet with favorable conditions. May they also have patience, courage, wisdom, and determination to face and overcome the inevitable obstacles, difficulties, and failures in life." Remember, practicing loving kindness is to purify your own mind, just as meditation aims to attain liberation from suffering. When you cultivate loving kindness for yourself, you can behave in a friendly manner without prejudice, bias, discrimination, or hatred. Your holy conduct will help others reduce suffering in the most practical way. This is the compassion of an individual towards others. Compassion is the expression of loving kindness, so a person without loving kindness cannot genuinely help others. Holy conduct means acting with friendliness and kindness. It includes thoughts, words, and deeds. If these three areas are not aligned, your behavior cannot be wholesome. In other words, it is better to nurture the wholesome thought, "May all beings be happy," rather than "I hate him." Our wholesome thoughts will one day manifest in our behavior, while our malicious thoughts will lead to cruel action. Remember that thoughts trigger actions and words, leading to the desired result. Thoughts are expressed through actions, and actions have the power to produce tangible results. You should always speak and act with mindfulness of loving kindness. If, while using language with a mind of loving kindness, your actions and words suddenly change to the opposite, you will be rebuked by your wisdom. When the mindfulness of loving kindness grows stronger, your thoughts, words, and actions will become gentle, harmonious, meaningful, sincere, and beneficial to yourself and others. If your thoughts, words, or actions harm yourself, others, or both, you should ask yourself if you are truly mindful of loving kindness. In everyone, especially your enemies, if they are well, happy, and peaceful, they will no longer be your enemies. If they are not plagued by problems, pain, suffering, mental distress, psychological imbalance, suspicion, fear, tension, anxiety, etc., they will not be your enemies. The most practical solution for your enemies is to help them overcome their problems, so you can live in peace and happiness. In fact, if possible, you should fill their minds with loving kindness and help them recognize the true meaning of peace, so you can live in joy and happiness. The more severe these illnesses are in them, the more chaos, pain, and suffering they will create in this world. If you can transform a corrupt, hate-filled person into a righteous, wise one, you have accomplished something miraculous. Let us cultivate enough wisdom and loving kindness within ourselves so that we can help transform malevolent minds into noble ones. When you hate someone, you may think, let him be wicked, suffer, be poor, make mistakes, be isolated, have no friends. After death, may he be condemned to hell. But in reality, your body and mind are releasing toxic substances that torment you, causing you pain, increasing your heart rate, tension, changing your facial expressions, making you lose your appetite, sleep restlessly, and look exhausted and worn down. You are experiencing exactly what you wish upon your enemy. Furthermore, you no longer see reality as it is. Your mind is agitated like boiling water, or you are like a patient suffering from jaundice, finding even the tastiest food bland and unappealing. Similarly, you no longer sympathize with those around you, praise their good deeds, etc. As long as this state continues, you will not be able to meditate well. Therefore, we advise you to practice loving kindness meditation before each meditation session. Recite the above vows mindfully and sincerely with all your heart. As you read these words, first feel the loving kindness within yourself and then extend it to others. You cannot give to others what you do not possess within yourself, can you? Remember, these are not magical formulas. They cannot do anything by themselves. If you use them with that intention, you will only waste your time and effort. But if you truly immerse yourself in these vows with all your sincerity and energy, they will help you greatly. Try it, and you will see the results for yourself. Facing difficulties. You will inevitably encounter many difficulties in your practice. Everyone does. Difficulties come in countless forms, and you can be sure that you will face them, to a greater or lesser extent. The key advice for dealing with obstacles is to maintain the right attitude. Difficulties are a necessary part of making your practice complete. They are not something to avoid, but rather opportunities for learning. The reason we are mired in the swamp of life is our relentless pursuit of desires and our constant avoidance of difficulties. Meditation is like a laboratory where we have the conditions to examine these challenges and develop methods to deal with each one. Unexpected difficulties that arise during meditation are like grain in a mill. They are the materials we work with. There can be no happiness without suffering, and vice versa. Life is composed of both joy and misery. They coexist and are inseparable. Meditation is no exception. You will experience times of good and bad, moments of ecstasy and fear. So never be surprised when you encounter the feeling of hitting a thick, impenetrable wall. Do not think you are special. Every experienced meditator has their own wall. It appears many times. Be ready and prepared to face your own wall. And your ability to deal with difficulties will depend on your attitude at the time. If you learn to view these struggles as opportunities, as chances for growth in your practice, you will make great progress. The ability to face the intense issues that arise in meditation will extend into your entire life, helping you handle the big problems that once troubled you. If you avoid the coarse, ugly aspects of your mind when they arise in meditation, you are only strengthening the habits that have made your life miserable and will make it worse. It is crucial to learn how to confront the shortcomings in your life. The work of a meditator is to learn to be patient with oneself, to look at oneself objectively, with all of one's misfortunes and weaknesses. We must learn to be gentle with ourselves. In the long run, avoiding what we dislike is a cruel act against ourselves. Paradoxically, loving kindness requires us to face our hatred when it arises. Common human strategy when facing adversity is self-suggestion. When something unpleasant arises, you convince yourself to avoid it and seek something better. But the Buddhist approach is the opposite. Instead of hiding or disguising it, the Buddha's teachings urge you to examine it thoroughly. Buddhism advises you not to engrave feelings you do not truly have, or to avoid feelings you genuinely have. If you are miserable, then be miserable. This is the truth. It is happening, so face it. Look it straight in the eye without flinching. When you encounter a negative situation, examine it, observe it mindfully, study the phenomenon, and learn the logic behind it. The way out of a trap is to understand its structure and how it works. You do this by dismantling it piece by piece. Trap can no longer hold you when you have taken it apart. The result is freedom. This is a crucial point, but it is also one of the most superficial aspects of Buddhist philosophy. Those who study Buddhist teachings only on the surface may hastily conclude that it is a pessimistic philosophy, emphasizing unpleasant realities like suffering, urging us to confront discomfort, pain, death, and illness. Buddhists do not consider themselves pessimists. Quite the opposite. Suffering is a constant in life, unavoidable. Learning how to deal with it is not pessimism, rather practical optimism. How will you act when your spouse dies? How will you feel if your mother is going to die tomorrow? Or your sister, close friend? Suppose you lose your job, lose your savings, become disabled in one arm in a day, and face the prospect of spending the rest of your days in a wheelchair. How will you react to the pain of cancer and cope when death is near? You may overcome some of these misfortunes, but you cannot avoid them all. Most of us have already lost friends or loved ones. We all occasionally fall ill, and sooner or later we will die. You can suffer terribly when it comes, or you can face it with wisdom. The choice is yours. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain and suffering are two different things. If any of these disasters befall you in your current state, you will suffer. The habits that currently control your mind will drag you into misery, with no way out. Just a little time spent learning alternative methods to these habits is truly worthwhile. Most of a person's life is spent expending energy to find ways to increase pleasure and reduce pain. Buddhism does not advise against doing this. Wealth and security are good things. Pain should be avoided if possible. No one tells you to give up what you have or seek out unnecessary pain, but Buddhism advises you to spend some time and energy learning how to face discomfort, because there are pains that cannot be avoided. When you see a car coming your way, you should try with all your might to avoid it quickly. Dedicating time to meditation is similar. Learning to confront discomfort is the only way to deal with the cars you cannot see. Many issues will arise in practice. Some are physical, some are psychological, and others stem from the meditator's perspective. All must be confronted, each with its own approach, and all are opportunities for you to overcome them. Issue 1. Physical pain. No one likes pain, but whether we want it or not, everyone experiences pain from time to time. It is a common experience and tends to occur during practice in one form or another. Dealing with pain involves two stages. One is to get out of the pain if possible. If not, reduce it as much as possible. Then, if any pain remains, use it as the object of meditation. The first step is to deal with the physical pain. The pain may be from an illness, such as a headache, fever, bruise, or anything similar. In such cases, take your usual remedies before sitting for meditation. Take medicine, apply balm, or do whatever you usually do. There is also pain caused by the sitting posture. If you have never sat for long periods in the lotus position on the floor, it takes time to adjust. Discomfort is almost inevitable. The treatment depends on the location of the pain. If the pain is in the shin or knee, check your clothing. It may be too tight or made of thick material, so change it. Also, check your cushion. It should be about 3 centimeters high when you sit on it. If you have pain in your waist, loosen your belt. If you have pain in your lower back, your posture is probably incorrect. Leaning is never comfortable, so sit upright. Don't stiffen, even as you keep your spine straight. Shoulder and neck pain can have multiple causes. First, incorrect hand placement. The hands should rest comfortably on your lap, not up at your waist. Relax your arms and neck muscles. Don't let your head droop forward. Keep it aligned with your spine. After you've made these adjustments and the pain persists, move to the second step. Use the pain as the object of meditation. Don't fidget or shift, just observe the pain mindfully. When the pain becomes intense, you'll notice that your attention is no longer on the breath. Don't resist. Let your attention merge with the sensation. Immerse yourself fully in the pain without interfering with the experience. Examine this sensation. Move beyond the avoidance reaction to go straight to the essence of the sensation, lies beneath. You'll discover that there are two aspects at play. One is the pure sensation, pain. The other is your resistance to the sensation. The resistance is partly physical and partly mental. The physical part includes the tension in the muscles around the pain area. Relax these muscles bit by bit until they are completely loose. This step alone may reduce most of the pain. Next, address the mental resistance. Just like physical tension, mental resistance also affects you. Your mind is rigidly attached to the sensation of pain, trying to protect itself and push it out of consciousness. The rejection is a form of the attitude, I don't like this feeling, or go away, without needing to say it aloud. Subtle, but it's there, and you'll see it if you truly observe. Find it and relax it. The final part is very delicate. No human language can precisely describe this action. The best way is through analogy. What you do to the tensed muscles, do the same to your tensed mind. Relax it, bit by bit. The scriptures acknowledge that the body and mind are closely connected. This is true to the extent that many people don't recognize the difference between the two. For them, relaxing the body is relaxing the mind and vice versa. They experience the relaxation of body and mind as one process. Regardless of how you view it, completely relax until your attention slows down enough. Overcome the obstacle, the pain you're facing. There is a gray area between the self and the other. There is a boundary between me and the pain. Dissolve this obstacle, and that separation disappears. You gradually enter and merge with the pain. Become the pain. You attentively observe its diminishing, along with the self, and follow it, and then something miraculous will happen to you. No longer hurts. Suffering is also gone. Only the pain remains, just a nearby experience and nothing more. The I that was suffering has disappeared. Result is freedom from the pain. This is a gradual process. Initially, you may hope to overcome small pains, but be overwhelmed by greater pain. Like any other skill, this will improve with practice. The more you practice, the better you will be at dealing with greater pain. It is important to understand this clearly. We do not advocate self-torture in this area. Self-mortification is not the point here. This is a practice in mindfulness, not an endurance test. If the pain becomes unbearable, you should change your posture, but do so slowly and mindfully. Observe the movement. Feel the sensation as you move. Watch how it affects the pain. Notice if the pain subsides. Try to move as little as possible. The less you move, the easier it is to maintain continuous mindfulness. Many new meditators say they cannot maintain mindfulness when there is pain. This difficulty arises from a misunderstanding. These meditators think that mindfulness is separate from the experience of pain, but it is not. Mindfulness never exists alone. Always has an object. Pain is a state of mind. You can be mindful of pain just as you are mindful of the breath. In Chapter 4, we discuss the rules for applying mindfulness to pain, just as to any other mental state. You should be careful not to exceed your limits of endurance, nor should you be too lax or careless. Never impose more than necessary, but do not overlook any detail either. Do not cover up the pure experience with relative concepts or distant thought. Keep your awareness in the present moment, right at the pain, so you miss nothing from beginning to end. Pain that is not viewed under the light of mindfulness will create psychological resistance, such as fear, anxiety, or anger. When viewed correctly, we do not react in such ways. It is simply a sensation, a simple stream of energy. Once you have learned this method with physical pain, you can apply it to the rest of your life, and apply it to any unpleasant sensation. What works for pain will also work for anxiety and depression. This method is one of the most useful and universal skills in human life. It is patience. Issue 2. Numbness in the legs. It is very common for new meditators to experience numbness in their legs during meditation. This is simply because they are not used to the lotus position. Some people worry about this issue. They feel the need to stand up and move around a bit. Few others even believe they might develop gangrene because blood cannot circulate. Numbness in the legs is nothing to worry about. It happens because of pressure, not because blood isn't circulating. You cannot damage the cells in your legs by sitting. So don't be anxious. When your legs become numb during meditation, just observe the phenomenon mindfully. Notice what it feels like. It's an uncomfortable sensation, but it's not painful if you don't tense up. Calmly observe it. Your legs will be fine even if they remain numb throughout the entire meditation session. Over time, as you continue to practice, this phenomenon will gradually disappear. Your body will gradually adjust to the practice, and eventually you won't experience numbness even during long meditation sessions. Issue 3. Strange sensations. Meditators experience all kinds of phenomena during meditation. Some people feel itchy. Others experience shivering, deep relaxation, a sense of floating or lightness. You might even feel as if you are growing larger or smaller or floating in the air. New meditators often become excited when they encounter these sensations. In daily life, most sensory experiences are limited and cannot fully reach consciousness, and we have grown accustomed to this perspective. When relaxation is established, the entire nervous system becomes more efficient at processing sensory input, leading to sensations that are different from normal, but they don't have any special meaning. They are simply sensations like any other. So just stick to your practice, observe them arising and passing away without interfering. Issue 4. Drowsiness. Lethargy. Drowsiness or lethargy often occurs during meditation. When you become quiet and comfortable, it is when it happens most easily. The ironic thing is that we usually experience this state when we are drifting off to sleep, and now we encounter it in meditation practice. So it is easy to drift off into sleep. When you recognize that this issue is occurring, you must apply mindfulness directly to the state of lethargy itself. Lethargy has its own distinct characteristic. It influences the thought process to a certain degree. Find out what those are. The sensations in the body also accompany it. Notice where they are. The mindfulness that seeks to understand this is the antidote to lethargy and will dissolve it. If mindfulness does not work, you should examine the physical causes of drowsiness. Identify them and address them. If you have just eaten and feel full, that could be the reason. It is best to eat lightly before meditation or wait about an hour after a full meal. Do not ignore other obvious factors. If you have been working hard all day, of course, you will be tired. Similarly, if you only slept a few hours last night, take care of your basic physical needs before practicing. Do not give in to drowsiness. Being aware while sleeping is entirely different from being aware while meditating. You will not gain wisdom while sleeping, but you will in meditation. If you feel too sleepy, take a deep breath and hold it as long as you can, then exhale slowly. Repeat this until your body heats up and the drowsiness disappears. Then return to the breath. Issue 5. Inability to concentrate. Overactive or wandering attention is a state everyone experiences from time to time. Usually, the methods outlined in chapters 11 and 12 on mindfulness of mind will apply. You will be guided on the external factors influencing this phenomenon. Adjusting your schedule may be the best solution for this issue. The seeds of the mind have supernatural power. They can persist in the storehouse consciousness for many lifetimes. Artistic images have been woven, shaped by materials, expressed skillfully through the pen of a talented writer, with details and representations that can lie dormant in the mind without our awareness. If you have watched the best movie of the year, the meditation session afterward will be full of images from that movie. You are in the middle of reading the most thrilling novel. Your meditation will be filled with terrifying monsters. So you need to rearrange your schedule. Meditate first, then read or watch movies afterward. Another convincing factor is your emotional state. If your life is in conflict, that turbulence will enter your meditation session. Try to resolve or at least settle conflicts if possible before sitting down to meditate. Life will run more smoothly and you won't waste time thinking uselessly during your practice. Do not use this advice as an excuse to skip meditation sessions. Sometimes you cannot resolve every issue completely before sitting down, so just meditate anyway. Use meditation to let go of the selfish attachments that trap you in your limited perspective. Then your problems will be more easily resolved. There will also be days when your mind simply refuses to settle down, and you cannot find the reason why. Remember the cyclical nature we discussed earlier. Meditation also follows cycles, with good days and bad days. The main focus of Vipassana meditation is mindfulness. An empty mind is less important than being mindful of what the mind is doing. If you are agitated and cannot stop it, then observe it, the agitation. It all belongs to you. The result will be a step closer to discovering the self. Above all, never be discouraged by your restless mind. That chatter is just an object for you to apply mindfulness to. Issue 6. Boredom. It is hard to think of anything more boring than sitting like a rock for hours, doing nothing but watching the sensation of breath passing in and out at the edge of your nostrils. You will experience boredom many times during your practice. Everyone does, and you are no exception. Boredom is a mental state and must be addressed accordingly. There are a few simple methods to deal with this issue. Method A. Re-establish true mindfulness. If the breath has become dull after many observations, you can be sure of one thing: your mindfulness is off track. Mindfulness is never boring. Look again. Never assume that you know what the breath is. Never be certain that you have seen everything there is to see. You believe so, it means you are conceptualizing the entire observation process. You are no longer observing the living reality. When you clearly focus on the breath or anything else, you are never bored. Mindfulness looks at everything with the eyes of a child, full of wonder. Each moment is as it is, and this is the only moment that exists in the universe. Look again and see. Method B. Observe your current mental state. Observe the state of boredom mindfully. What is boredom? Where is it? How does it feel? What is its structure? Can it be touched? How does it affect mental activity? Give boredom a completely fresh look, as if you have never been bored before, and this is your first time. Issue 7. Fear. Fear sometimes arises during meditation without any apparent reason. It is a common phenomenon with many causes. One possibility is that you may be experiencing the effects of some repressed event from the past. Remember, thoughts form first in the unconscious. The emotional content of mental formations often filters into conscious awareness before the thought itself manifests. If you sit through the fear, that very memory might surface right where you are enduring. Another possibility is that you might be facing the universal human fear. Fear of the unknown. At some point on the path to truth, you will be deeply shocked by what you are actually doing. You are breaking down the walls of illusion that you have always used to explain life to yourself and protect yourself from the terrifying fire of truth. You are about to confront the ultimate truth. It is a terrifying thing, but it must happen eventually. But why not go straight into it? The third possibility is that the fear you are feeling might be self-created. It arises from clumsy concentration. You may have unconsciously set up a program to inspect what arises. In this way, when imaginary fear arises, concentrated mind locks onto it, and then the unimagined reinforces the energy in that focus, making it grow. The real issue here is weak mindfulness. If mindfulness, sati, is strong enough, it will recognize that the focus, vitakka, is shifting in time as it is happening to bring the mind back to the main object. No matter the source of fear, mindfulness is the effective remedy. Observe the reaction of sensory responses to understand what they are. Stand on the sidelines of the process and observe. Do not interfere. Watch the whole transformation as a fascinated spectator. The most important thing is not to resist the current situation. Do not try to suppress memories, feelings, or imaginations. Just step aside and let the whole mess come up and pass away with time. Of course, it cannot hurt you anymore because it is just a collection of memories, imaginations. It is nothing but fear. When you let it operate within the forum of conscious attention, it will not sink back into the unconscious. It will not return to haunt you later. It will go away permanently. Issue 8. Restlessness, agitation. Restlessness or agitation often masks deep-seated experiences in the unconscious. As humans, we tend to suppress things. Instead of facing unpleasant thoughts, we bury them. Then we think we don't have to deal with them anymore. But unfortunately, we are never quite successful. We hide the thoughts, but the mental energy used to do so remains stored there and continues to simmer over time. The result is that uneasy feeling people call agitation or restlessness. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you feel uneasy and unable to relax. When this state arises during meditation, just observe it. Don't let it trample over you. Don't jump up and run away. Don't fight it or try to drive it away. Just let it be there and observe it carefully. Next, the suppressed material will have to surface, and you will know what it is that you are anxious about. The unpleasant experience you were trying to avoid could be anything: guilt, greed, or irritation. It may be a minor pain, a persistent illness, or an emerging condition. Whatever it is, let it arise and observe it mindfully. If you sit quietly and observe your restlessness, it will eventually pass. Sitting through restlessness is an important step in your meditation practice, and you will learn a great deal. You will see that restlessness is merely the surface of a mental state, nothing more. It is fleeting. It comes and goes without affecting you. And if you learn this, it will benefit your entire life. Issue 9. Overexertion. As meditators progress over time, they often develop a sense of humor. They share in the precious treasure of humanity. Humor. This isn't the witty banter of talk show hosts, but a kind of human joyfulness. They can find joy in their failures, smiling even in the face of disaster. New meditators, however, often take themselves too seriously, rarely laughing. In truth, learning to relax during meditation and to be comfortable in your practice is very important. You need to learn to flow with life, whatever is happening. You cannot do this if you are always tense, battling, and facing everything with excessive seriousness. New meditators often have excessive zeal for results. They tend to exaggerate their expectations and inflate their accomplishment. They dive headlong into meditation, expecting miraculous results overnight. They push, strain, struggle, and tire themselves out, all with a serious, cold demeanor. This tension is entirely opposed to mindfulness. Of course, they achieve a little something, only to conclude that meditation isn't enjoyable, doesn't bring what they desire, and then they abandon it. What needs to be said here is that you should learn meditation by practicing meditation. You should learn what meditation is and where it leads by directly experiencing the nature of things. Therefore, beginners often do not know the true goal of meditation, because they have gathered only a minimal understanding of the path's purpose. Expectations without experience are inherently unrealistic and incorrect. As a beginner in meditation, you will have incorrect expectations that do not help, only become obstacles on the path. Overexertion leads to rigidity and melancholy, then feelings of guilt and self-condemnation. When you overstrain yourself, your efforts become mechanical, destroying mindfulness before you even begin. The best advice is to let go of all that, the expectations and the tension. Simply practice with balanced and steady effort. Enjoy your practice and do not destroy yourself with exhaustion and struggle. Just be mindful. The essence of meditation is caring for the future, after all. Issue 10. Discouragement. The direct ultimate consequence of overexertion is discouragement. You're tense, not getting anywhere. You realize you haven't achieved what you expected, so you become discouraged. You see yourself as a failure. All of this is natural but avoidable. Cause is pursuing unrealistic goals. However, this is still a common phenomenon. Despite all the best advice, you may suddenly find it happening to you. There is a way to deal with this problem. If you find yourself discouraged, observe the state of mind clearly. Don't add anything to it. Just observe. The feeling of failure is just another fleeting psychological reaction. If you get involved, you give it energy to grow. But if you just stand aside and watch, it will pass and disappear without saying goodbye. If discouragement arises from recognizing failure in meditation, it is easy to resolve. You feel you've failed in your practice, can't establish mindfulness, then simply be mindful of that feeling of failure. There, you've already re-established mindfulness. The cause of the feeling of failure is nothing more than a memory. There is no real failure in meditation. There are setbacks and difficulties, but there is no failure unless you stop practicing. Even if you spend 20 years and get nowhere, you can still be mindful at any moment you choose. The decision is yours. Regret is just a way to lose mindfulness. The moment you realize you've lost mindfulness, that realization itself is an act of mindfulness. So continue the process. Don't get lost in psychological reaction. Issue 11. Resistance to meditation. There will also be times when you feel like you don't want to sit at all. This thought is not good. Skipping a session might not seem too serious, but it can easily become a habit. A wise person will overcome this resistance, sit down, and observe that feeling of resistance. Usually, this is just a fleeting sensation, like a drop of water on a hot pan, evaporating before your eyes. 5 minutes after sitting down, this feeling disappears. In other cases, it may stem from a bad mental state during the day, carrying over into your meditation session. Even so, it will pass. So why not let it go in the first 20 or 30 minutes, instead of carrying it around, letting it ruin the rest of your day? Sometimes resistance may arise from a blockage in your practice that you may or may not be aware of. You know what the problem is. Use one of the methods in this book to address it. Once resolved, the resistance will be gone. If you don't know what the issue is, you'll have to persist in discovering it. Just sit through the resistance and observe it mindfully. When it expires, it will quietly leave, even if you don't know what it was. After that, the root of the problem will surface, and you can deal with it. If resistance to meditation is a recurring feature of your practice, you should believe that it stems from subtle flaws in your basic approach. Meditation is not a ritualized series of specific movement. It's not a painful exercise or a period of training to endure boredom. Nor is it a matter of severity, seriousness, or duty. Meditation is mindfulness. It is a new way of seeing, a new way of living. Meditation is useful to us, so appreciate it, and resistance will dissipate like mist in the summer wind. If you've used every possible means and resistance still persists, there's a problem here. It could be a metaphysical obstacle that the meditator has encountered, far beyond the scope of this book. Usually this does not happen to beginners, but it is possible. Don't give up, seek help. Find a good Vipassana teacher to help you understand the issue. They are there for this purpose. Issue 12. A state of bewilderment or darkness. We've discussed the phenomenon of aimless wandering, but there is a specific turn you need to be on guard for. Mental dullness can be an unwanted byproduct of deep concentration. Whenever you completely relax your muscles and nervous system, it leads to a state of calm and lightness in the body. At that point, you feel very still and as if you no longer have a body. This is a pleasant state, indicating that your concentration is strong and closely aligned with the breath. As you continue, the pleasant feeling increases, causing you to shift your focus away from the breath. You start to enjoy this state and your concentration plummets. Focus shatters, drifting hopelessly through the fragile cloud of bliss. Moments later, you're left in a state of forgetfulness, in a bewildered daze. The remedy, of course, is mindfulness. Mindfulness observes these phenomena, and they dissipate. When feelings of bliss arise, accept them. There's no need to avoid them, but don't get carried away by them. Treat these physiological sensations as they are. Observe sensation as sensation, darkness as darkness. Watch as they arise and pass away. Don't interfere. You will inevitably encounter difficulties in your practice. Everyone does. You can view them as physical discomfort or as challenges to overcome. If you see them as burdens, your suffering will only increase. But if you view them as opportunities to learn and grow, your spiritual outlook will become immeasurable.